winner, Rebecca Windham.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Windham, and I will be presenting on my thesis, The Exploitation of Minors in the Film Industry. C.S. Lewis, a man known for his inspiring works and dedication to the Lord, writes a book that creates a relationship between the novel itself and the problem of greed. In his novel, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Lewis constructs a character so vexing and greedy that readers of his work will cringe in frustration. This character's name is Eustace, a young boy so deceitful and nasty who has the overwhelming desire to fulfill his wants. He is self-obsessed and conceited and is willing to use others to get what he desires. Eustace's greed gets the best of him, which causes his downfall. In John's Gospel account, Jesus speaks to his disciples, telling them that those who act out on their sin nature and malice towards him are children of the devil. He explains, "You are of your father the devil, and it is your will to practice the desires which are characteristic of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning, and he does not stand in truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks what is natural to him, for he is a liar and the father of lies and half-truths. It is in our human nature to long for earthly things and be greedy. However, it is when we harm others and use others to get what we want that we have strayed too far from virtue." These characteristics can be attributed to the directors, producers, and parents of children in the film industry. They all profit off young, unknowing children and convince themselves that they are helping the child reach success. Since children, like Lewis's Eustace, cannot be depended upon to make the lasting decisions that will affect their mental health, parents must be held accountable for the decisions they make for their child to participate in the entertainment industry. Eustace's childish decision leads him to loneliness and isolation. Eustace is hated by everyone around him, but that does not seem to shake his pride. Much to his chagrin, he must accompany his cousins on a voyage that seems childish and beneath him. While on the voyage, they make a stop at an island. Eustace decides to go explore the island, and he comes across a magnificent cave full of jewels, gold, and treasures. However, within the cave, there's a gigantic dragon, the symbol of greed, that hoards the treasure. Eustace sees the treasure and longs to have it. He comes across a beautiful gold bracelet, and he puts it on his wrist. He soon falls asleep with all the treasure and with the gold bracelet still on his wrist. When Eustace finally does wake up, he realizes that he is transformed into a dragon. Naturally, he reacts with much fear and confusion. As a dragon, Eustace faces loneliness and isolation, and soon regrets his greedy decision. Eustace seeks help in order to undo his transformation and eventually finds it in Aslan. Aslan, the great lion of Narnia, stands as the almighty image of Jesus. Aslan peels back every layer that is representative of a different sin. Pride, greed, selfishness, every layer is torn back from Eustace's body and removed until he becomes a boy again. There is redemption in Eustace's story. However, most people are not as fortunate as Eustace. There are people in the film industry who do not mind using and harming others especially children who cannot make informed and wise decisions in order to fulfill their greedy desires. Their lust for money and power blind them and turn them into vipers who only look out for their own self-interest. Paul warns against this in Ephesians 6:4, saying, "Parents, do not provoke your children to anger. Do not exasperate them to the point of resentment with demands that are trivial, nor unreasonable, nor humiliating, nor abusive, nor by showing favoritism to any of them, but bring them up tenderly with loving kindness and the discipline and instruction of the Lord." Many adults fail to see that they are wrong because they have convinced themselves that everything they are doing is for the benefit of the child. Even if they do not believe that, then they are only looking out for themselves. They push the child so that they can receive the glory and money that they cannot receive by their own merit. Jeanette McCurdy, Timothy Sherry, Christopher C. Cianci, and Jessica Krieg all have direct and indirect connections to the film industry and have experienced firsthand and have extensive knowledge of the dangers of the film industry and the effects that it can have on young children who act. The term pedophile refers to those who sexually exploit and sexually abuse children. In recent years, the term minor attracted person, or MAP, has come into use to refer to these individuals. MAPs also fall into two categories: MAP actors, pedophiles who act out on their urges, thoughts, and desires with children, and MAP non-actors, an individual who does not act out on their urges, thoughts, and desires with children. Pedophiles fall into the former category, in which the individual does sexually exploit and abuse children. Sexualizing, according to Kelsey Briner and Sarah Bosquet of Child USA, is defined as valuing a person exclusively for their sexual appeal or behavior, equating physical attractiveness, sexually objectifying a person, or negatively, inappropriately imposing sexuality on a person. Clear your mind and picture a young boy who aspires to be an esteemed actor and to have a positive impact on all who encounter his work. His father tries to implement him into multiple different sports, but soon realizes his son has a different kind of talent: public speaking and the impersonation of actors. Because the boy has a confident personality, his father enrolls him into multiple different acting classes at the very early age of 5. He begins by taking on smaller roles, but soon, because of his exemplary talent, becomes noticed by significant companies, including the Paramount Channel Nickelodeon. He soon lands a role on the hit series The Amanda Show. The series lasts from 1999 to 2002, and through its exposure, the boy gains more popularity. While on the set of The Amanda Show, he meets dialogue coach named Brian Peck, and because of their shared love of film, the two grow quite close almost instantaneously. The boy continues to increase in popularity, and by the time he is 15, his relationship with Brian becomes that of a close friend. However, their relationship begins to change when Brian gets too comfortable and begins to cross physical boundaries. Rightfully concerned, his father voices his concerns to the production crew, who immediately dismisses him, using Brian's identity as a homosexual man to justify his actions. To make matters worse, the crew then accuses his father of homophobia, saying that he just does not understand Brian's physical tendencies. Feeling ostracized, the boy's father relents and is soon isolated from his son's life. With the boy's father no longer serving as a primary guardian, Brian becomes his manager, and things begin to spiral out of control. Brian offers for him to stay at his house, which is close to the set, under the pretense of working on lines and dialogue for auditions. Brian convinces his mother, who is divorced from his father, to allow him to stay over. This arrangement becomes habitual, and the boy finds himself back at Brian's over and over again. One night, Brian's true intentions come to center stage at full force. Much to the ill-fated boy's horror, he wakes up one morning on the couch, where he usually sleeps when he stays at Brian's, to the man sexually assaulting him. Frozen in complete terror, the boy has no idea how to get out of this situation. His mother cannot come pick him up because she's an hour away, and he cannot drive because he is only 15. Even if his mother were to come get him, he would still have to wait. Terrified, the boy feels that he cannot speak up, so he does not. Because no one is aware of his situation, he finds himself back at Brian's. He feels that he cannot speak up because he is unsure if he will be believed. He is unable to process the trauma of his situation, and he knows that Brian has the power to ruin his career. This young boy's name is Drake Bell, one of the actors on the commonly known show Drake and Josh. He was a victim of sexual assault at the age of 15 at the hands of a trusted film professional, Brian Peck. With 11 charges of multiple different kinds of sexual assault against Peck, the court sides with Drake. However, it still feels as though justice was never fully served, as Peck only spent 16 months in prison. This is a real-life example of the crime, abuse, and violation that can and does take place on these sets of the film industry where these children are not protected. Children from newborns to 17-year-olds cannot make the lasting decisions due to their lack of proper discernment, so they are prone to acquiesce to the decisions of the adults in their lives. Because children are reliant on the decisions of the adults in their lives, it is the responsibility of the parent to ensure that the decisions being made for their child are safe and reasonable. When asked about her thoughts on child acting, musician and actress Ariana Grande says this: "The environment needs to be made safer if these kids are going to be acting. There should be therapists and parents allowed to be wherever they want to be." Ariana Grande has resided in the limelight for the majority of her life and possesses first-hand child acting experience. This first-hand account from a widely renowned actor indicates just how treacherous the environment of a set can be for a child. And while Grande now has the acclaim and platform to draw attention to these issues, there will continue to be children who will be affected by the poor decisions of the adults in their lives in relative obscurity. Without discerning parental oversight and distinctive parental protection, children will continue to be taken advantage of for personal gain of any kind. According to a production assistant who was interviewed for this thesis and who was asked to remain anonymous, requirements for children in the film industry are unrealistic and often dangerous. This source, who will be referred to as Emily, claims that children are not seen as children. They are expected to act as professionals, and they're expected to act as adults. In the film industry, children are forced prematurely into adulthood, and are often neglected a normal and developmentally appropriate childhood. Most of these children have either just entered their adolescent years or are younger than that. And while the adolescent years are crucial to a child's development, mentally, physically, and emotionally, this development is stunted by an industry that requires some level of professionalism from them. It is because of this adultification of child actors that Grande has spoken out about her thoughts on mental health professionals in the film industry. She states, "There should be an element of therapy that is mandatory of a professional person to unpack what this experience can do to you at such a young age, at any age. Children who are exposed to the film industry at such a young age need someone, other than a parent, to debrief with them. The exhausting and taxing work that is required of them is nothing short of a full-time job. The demands they require of them are often mentally and physically strenuous. A counseling course for parents and children must be mandated before the child starts acting. Hopefully this process would equip the parents and children with the information and knowledge they need to report and to point out and report these predators." As mentioned before, regulations for children in the industry are scarce at best. Unfortunately, there is not an advisor to regulate who the child leaves the set with. Another actor named Shane Lyons, who is on the set of All That, speaks out about his experience while on the set. Because of the irresponsible lack of monitoring, and because the crew and adults trusted dialogue coach Brian Peck, who accompanied him, no one questioned the situation. Shane said this in the interview, "There were certainly some passes," the former child actor revealed. Brian continued to ask him a wildly inappropriate question, to which Shane did not know how to react. Shane explains, "As I look back now, as an adult, as a 36-year-old, would I ever have a conversation with a 13-year-old boy like he had with me? No, it makes absolutely zero sense. In situations similar to this one, safe places must be established for the child to report any issue they have. Directors, dialogue coaches, and fellow actors should report if they witness foul play or abuse where a minor is concerned. While individuals may think that it is not their place to report an issue that does not involve or concern them, in this industry, these kind of reports are especially needed. Think about the boy who was sexually assaulted and could do nothing about it. Nobody thought that it was weird that a middle-aged man was hanging around a 15-year-old boy, so no one reported it. One cannot be afraid of something they are unaware exists and for which they do not have the knowledge and understanding to explain. This boy had no one to help him, and he was too afraid to speak up and to delineate what happened to him. We need not only places to turn to, but stronger safeguards to ensure that these children never have to endure what this young boy endured." Those who would defend the idea that the benefits of children in the film industry far outweigh the drawbacks often offer a few main arguments for their defense. First, some would argue that the younger you start in the industry, the better. The most successful actors were the ones who started as children, as they may be provided with experience, financial stability, and higher probability for success in the future. Second, supporters of these so-called benefits would also claim that there is no point in trying to repair and regulate an already broken industry, saying, "That's just Hollywood for you." Finally, many will argue that within this broken industry, the creation of safeguards are not worth the time and money, insinuating that monetary gain is of far greater importance than the protection and well-being of these children. Of the arguments against regulations surrounding childhood participation in the film industry, perhaps the most prevalent is the claim that increased regulations might hinder children who could benefit from an early start in the industry. For example, look at the life and career of Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande kickstarted her career at the age of 15. She began her career on Broadway, and a couple years later, she gained popularity for her role as Cat Valentine on the show Victorious. From then on out, she was an idol to many fans around the world. While Ariana Grande is successful and wealthy, one thing that simply cannot be ignored is the mental, physical, and emotional toll her job has taken on her over the years. As she was diagnosed with PTSD in 2018, has developed depression and anxiety, and her physical appearance has changed drastically throughout her life and career. As she has spent countless days in the industry, she has received constant criticism from the public, which has contributed to the deterioration of these harmful repercussions. Knowing this information about Ariana Grande begs the question, is it worth it to jeopardize your mental and physical health in order to become successful and famous? The dream of success, fame, and monetary gain usually appeal to the parents of these child actors and not actually the children themselves. Jessica Krieg further emphasizes this point in her article, "There's No Business Like Show Business, Child Entertainers in the Law." She states, "However, when the money and perks of a career in entertainment enter the picture, most parents can no longer be presumptively viewed as protectors for their children. Minors working as entertainers often have no one to look out for them, which is why the federal government needs to step in and take action." Another argument that is presented against the extensive protection of children in the film industry is the often overused expression, "That's just Hollywood for you," a statement that alludes to the fact that you cannot change or fix an already broken industry. Many will also say that the more rules and regulations you have, the more hoops you have to jump through. People do not want more rules and regulations because it creates one more obstacle between them and success and money. The expression, "That's just Hollywood for you," is a harsh reality about the film industry and begs you to give up on the idea of rectifying any aspect of the industry, intimacy coordinators, counselors, and mental health professionals included. For instance, detractors of these professionals might also claim that receiving counseling is expensive and people do not want to make a report for they fear being fired and kicked out of the industry. Counseling could be beneficial for both the parent and the child. Most people do not want to report as they fear being fired. Actress Giovanni Samuels says this about her experience while on the set of All That. "Do I speak up? And if I do speak up, will I lose my job? Or do I just let it go? The fear itself keeps people from making change happen and from bringing up issues they have. Frequently, speaking up appears to be pointless, because in most contracts it will tell you that the director has the creative freedom to change or add anything he or she wants at any time. This is a daunting statement that should make the child and parent uneasy. Changes may be minor, but they can also be major and can affect the child whose script is being modified. In these cases, the child will probably go with what the present adult says is right, which is why they need someone else who is looking out for them. However, it seems as though these children have no one looking out for them. Most of the time, parents believe that the given contract is enough to protect their child. A child protective course could be beneficial, but most people do not want to sacrifice the time and money that it can require. In conclusion, current culture allows and encourages children to make the decisions that their parents are supposed to, and parents allow this to happen. As a society, we're increasingly treating minors as adults and are expecting them to make decisions that they are not educated on. Why would any parent allow their child to sign their life away just to make money? These kids that are signing these extensive contracts are not reading the fine print. Do you know who is supposed to do that for them? Their parents, and contractors are supposed to. These adults and parents are taking advantage of these children and their ignorance. Thank you. The floor is open for questions.
Hey, it's been a real delight to see you put care and so much thoughtfulness into this. I don't know, I see the care and thoughtfulness that you put into your relationships and your friends and your classes, and
Thank you.
We've done the same thing here, so yeah,
Thank you so much.
amazing work. Okay, so my question, so I guess I could venture to guess that most of us in this room do not have connections to the childhood film
Right.
industry, not personal ones. And so I guess moving beyond being more responsible or informed consumers of this kind of media or media that includes children, what would you say based on the research you've done and some of the principles you've gleaned from this? What are some of those principles that might be applied to those of us who maybe don't have direct ties to the childhood film industry?
So an example of something that's relatable for people that don't have children who act is travel sports, really extensive travel sports. I know a lot of parents will put their child into either one or just multiple sports, but most of the time it is exploiting your child in a way because you're pushing your child to do extensive hard work, and it's all day usually and you go out of town for tournaments and you come back and it seems like you have no family time, no time to yourself. They probably don't sleep as much as they should, and they're not, like I said in my paper, not given a normal childhood. They're working all the time, and so they're not doing things that kids should be doing to grow their mental strength a lot of the time. And so while they're not monetizing their child in these sports, they're still putting their child out there, may or may not be forcing their child to do the extensive work that they are doing. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Very good job.
Thank you.
Really proud of you. So a couple of questions. One, it's in another part of your paper that you didn't really have time to cover in your talk. You talked about how few these childhood stars grow up to be healthy adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered if you could just talk a little bit about that.
So my primary source was the book I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which was a very detailed take on her experience as a child actor. And she did not have a normal childhood. She started acting at a very early age. Her mom was forcing her to do that. And so she developed, as she grew up, she developed eating disorders and mental problems, and then her mom got cancer and things kind of went downhill. I would say a lot of the time, those that started as children, because they're not given the opportunity to play and act as normal kids do, they do kind of have to grow up really quickly, and they're expected to act as adults. And so, which can lead to, like in the industry, a lot of people look a certain way, and you're forced to appear a certain way to the public, and so that can make them feel like they're less than. And so a lot of times they do develop these things, like, and they're usually mentally unwell. Like I said, Ariana Grande has developed depression and anxiety, and she was diagnosed with PTSD, which are some of the repercussions that can come from the overwhelming stress and the expectation to grow up extremely fast.
Appreciate that. And then you talked about that parents should have accountability for exploiting their children. I'm curious what sorts of accountability you think would be appropriate.
So I talked about the course, which should be mandated, and the course would be educating the child on things that are wrong for an adult to say to them or do to them, because most of the time they're really little. And also for the parent to know these things, because the parent's not always present on set. They do have set teachers that are there with them sometimes if the parent is not. But just educating both the parent and the child on things that should not happen, should not be said to them. And just honestly, the parent should be present, but I know sometimes they're not, which is why I think them having a set teacher is so important, as long as they have someone who's looking out for them. But a lot of the times, producers and directors view them as excess, so they're just kind of there to check off a box.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I feel like I couldn't take a 7-year-old and put him in a coal mine. So are there any standards that exist? I mean, maybe you spoke to that some, but you're saying there's need for more things, but what it seems like there has to be some sort of standards. I could put a 7-year-old on a movie set, I guess. I could put him in a coal mine. So what are the standards? I'm kind of ignorant about that.
So they do have rules, like as far as monetary gain and the protection of these kids. Like I said, they have a set teacher who looks out for them. They sign contracts that are supposed to protect them, but most of the time are just saying we can do all these things to you and we're not responsible. But a lot of the time, like there was a law that got passed, the Coogan law, that was for Jackie Coogan. His parents had taken all of his money that he had amounted from when he was a kid in acting, and when it was time for him to access the trust, his parents had already drained it. And so that law is set in place for the children to, it's set aside, and so that when they can't access it, they get a percentage of it. But as far as protection, when I interviewed the PA for this thesis, she was saying that the industry is like a revolving door. It's so in and out, and you film here for a little bit, and then you leave, and then you film there, and everybody's different. Like the helpers are different, the workers are different, PAs change out, like everybody changes out, and so it's hard to regulate who is there to help, because a lot of the times they don't even do background checks, and everybody's just there to work. But it's kind
I hope they do background checks. That's crazy. So just real quick, question. Did you find any examples of positive experiences?
There are, yes. Like I know the Candace Cameron Bure, she's a positive example, as her family is also Christian, and they were so strong about that when they were younger, and so they had that kind of positivity, and she was never, because of that, she didn't do anything that went against her morals, and she wasn't exploited like the rest of these kids were, and her parents had a lot to do with that too. They were very involved in their lives, her and her siblings, and she is still an actress to this day and is doing well, and she's, as far as I know, she's not, I haven't heard of her having mental health issues like Ariana Grande or Jeanette, so there were positive examples.
At least one.
At least one, yeah.
Rebecca, how did you come to this topic? I mean, it seems sort of, there are a lot of similarities, like I keep making eye contact with Ainsley because a lot of the things that you talked about lost childhood relate to that, but why the film industry?
So I've always been drawn to actors and their lives. I don't so much anymore, but when I was probably like a freshman and sophomore, and I guess junior year I had to because I was researching my topic, but I would constantly be like, oh, what is this celebrity doing? Or like, what's the newest news on this person? And I had always been drawn to film, and when I feel like several kids are like, oh, I want to be an actor, I want to be in this movie when I'm older. And so I was like, well, that's like so cool, but are these kids who start young, is it that great of an environment? Like, should they be acting when they're older and not when they're younger? And so I talked to Ms. French about my topic, and I was kind of not sure how I wanted to tackle it. I could have tackled the legal side of things and what are the laws that are currently set in place and things like that, but legal issues get really complicated. But just, I love like theater and all that stuff, and so I was like, it'd be really cool to see, oh yes, and that documentary that came out, The Dark Side of Kids TV on Nickelodeon, came out last year. I did watch that, and that was really emotional, and which promoted me to want to do more research on this. It was a very interesting documentary that exposed all the wrong that happens behind the scenes that you never think about, because you're like, oh, these kids are so cute, they're having so much fun on set, when most of the time it's not that at all, and some parents are forcing their child into it and are monetizing them.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I really enjoyed your analogy of the Dawn Treader and Eustace.
Thank you.
Is there any sort of identifiable Aslan that brings redemption and restoration to this?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, there are some advocates who have tried to speak out for these kids. Like the production assistant that I interviewed, she's actually trying to be an advocate for these kids and is trying to make change happen. But people like that who know that these things are wrong and they're willing to help out and make a change can be viewed as saviors of these kids. And it's just unfortunate that we don't have enough of those kind of people, because a lot of the times they don't feel that significant change will happen. But yeah, people like that are willing to reach out and be there for the kids are Aslans in that case. If there are no further questions, thank you. I ran through that so fast.